white pieces, and here we go.
And here we go. It's not St. George's Day anymore, but it's the English opening instead.
Yay!
And Magnus Carlsen pushing his c-pawn forward. He's been kind of just experimenting with a whole variety of openings so far in the Oslo Esports Cup. And here we go. White bringing a knight out. Maybe not having expected this opening from Magnus Carlsen, he actually goes for the move I was expecting. This one Giri has played many times before, and Magnus now going for the 4 knights variation of the English and a set of trades. It's called the reverse dragon, this system, because it's like a dragon Sicilian, but with reverse colours, white having an extra move. And still very well-known stuff from both players. Anish about to push the black h-pawn forward. And yeah, a theoretical battle between them. Who's done the better homework? That's the big question.
I didn't like giving away the space advantage when I had the white pieces, and you can sort of see that black already has a pawn further advanced than white, and that just wasn't something I enjoyed doing.
This bishop move that Magnus just played, the two were actually repeating a game that they'd played against each other in 2019 in the Gashimov Memorial. Magnus has never played this, but Anish has definitely faced it.
Interesting. So Anish clearly, having studied this position before, Magnus must have done, right? If he's raced into this position, he must have studied Anish's previous games. That's what the top players do. We talk about training camps, opening preparation. And, OK, after just a little bit of thought, Anish centralises his rook.
But this is what I heard, and I'm sure it happened somewhere, probably not the British Championships, and all the players went to castle at a certain point.
And Anish retreating his queen.
Didn't I have a favourite opening? Because I do listen to the best chess players every day talk about chess, but I'm having a hard time memorising those openings.
I got a fair few on chessboard, and the last one that came out was The Life and Times of Mikhail Tal. So it was actually he wrote this one, and he's one of the most interesting chess players, my favourite chess player of all time.
Okay.
Both players just kind of marking out their territory. We haven't talked so much about the last few moves because both players were just kind of improving their pieces slowly. If you look at White's army here, it's all kind of camped out on the first 3 ranks, not really kind of pushing forward yet, not really initiating that kind of action between the two sets of forces. Black, meanwhile, spent a lot of moves with the queen. That's why we normally say don't bring your queen out too early, because Black had to use a couple moves to retreat her to a safe square, just to make sure she wouldn't get hit by a set of bishops, maybe hit by some pawns. And now Magnus, with this last pawn push, just getting ready to expand and push White's pawns forward on this left flank.
I think Karpov played quite often, and I know that because my friend Adam Hunt beat me with this idea once, and he told me it was the Karpov variation, but he could have been fibbing. He just beat me and pretended he was Karpov, and I was like, yeah, I believe you. But similar kind of thing happening anyway, David, here in the game.
Knight forks later to worry about, but it's all about the diagonals, and White's bishops do look very good on these 2 diagonals right now. The black queen was attacked, so Anish has found a safe square for her in the middle of the board. Still a lot of action yet to come. And, OK, Magnus starts by choosing to offer a trade of bishops. OK, and no trades yet. Anish says, you can do it, but on my terms. He pushes forward, and Magnus doing the same. The minority attack is coming. These 2 are going to undermine Black's 3 pawns over here.
But I agree with you, Vanka. I mean, White has this easy plan, the minority attack of opening up the light square bishop, just trying to win a pawn on the queen side, positioned into the centre to get rid of White's very strong bishop in front of his king. Yeah.
Forced moves like that in chess. It's like a...
Fair enough, yeah.
Chess is like warfare after all, and the queen on a different square. And he's now maybe trying to trade off the bishops on this diagonal. Magnus meeting that by attacking the black queen. Interesting. So he's attacking the black queen, and if we see Black block with the bishops, how is Magnus going to keep the bishops on the board now?
He's keeping the balance, I think.
I think we might be... Oh, I was going to say we might be about to see a repetition of moves, but no, Magnus trades things off, and, OK, he's lured the black queen to this square because he wants to create a pin on the 4th rank.
What is
it comes
not
from
in
the
chess?
Persian word for, I think, tower, I think.
But, OK, meanwhile, a couple of moves. The black queen, we mentioned, was uncomfortable on that 4th rank, so she's gone back to reposition herself, and not too much else has changed. So now I'm expecting Magnus to start pushing pawns on this left flank because he's a bit stuck.
You know, it's on that open file, and he's played it.
He's done it.
He's done it.
So it wasn't irrelevant, all the stuff we were talking about there. En passant is in the position. Black can actually capture this pawn as if it just moved 1 square. And to take or not to take, that is the question. It looks on Anish's screen, like he is about to go for it. There we go, en passant did happen, queen trade very quickly, and white recaptured the pawn. So
before, in ancient times, the bishop was an advisor to the king.
Ah.
Yeah.
So, you know, the bishop sits next to the king.
Okay, so that makes
So
sense.
that's why that...
Definitely, it's good to be curious.
Yeah. So you wouldn't actually say that chess is perfect?
And also, it's a Magnus position, right? Magnus loves playing against small strategic problems, which Anish has. I mean, I guess it is. I mean, we go for...
So a 9-minute advantage for the world champion, and we know he's not feeling well, Magnus Carlsen, but this is the type of position, this is his bread and butter. This is what he's specialised in since he was young, and Anish has just got his strategy all wrong. Okay, he pushes a pawn forward now, just stopping any kind of rook checks maybe. The white rook on the 4th rank was about to swing over, but now there is a target for the white rook, and Anish, it's really hanging by a thread for him already. Trades one set of rooks, but that only improves white's pawn structure. Anish has gone into his opponent's home territory. Anish clearly uncomfortable. He has to use his rook to defend his pawns now on this 5th rank, but Magnus can step a pawn forward in the centre. And, okay, Magnus brings his rook across, defends his bishop. Look how flexible white's pawn structure is as well. White can push pretty much any pawn if he wants to. Black's pawns are all pretty much fixed, because in a pure rook endgame, his pawns would be even weaker. Black's rook is stuck on the 5th rank, just doing a defensive job, so he has to play with his king alone. First, he's going to push pawns. He's going to try and kind of force Giri to trade off these bishops. Even if you're really unwell, you can play a position like this. Even if you're really tired, you can play a position like this.
It's very much to the middle in all our matches.
Yeah, I'm going to say now, I'll be shocked if Magnus doesn't win this. I know he's not feeling 100%, but just look at his last few moves. He pushed a pawn forward in the centre, solidifying everything. And now the white king kind of making its way towards those isolated, weak, doubled black pawns.
And especially if Magnus is sneaky and gives him a chance to, like, break out, but it was a false promise. OK, so the bishops have been traded. We did speak about that, you know, that there is the urge to do something. The bishops are off. Which pawn should capture the bishop? Both of them kind of look nice.
Both look nice. He's got to be 100% sure there that he's winning. So you don't go into a king and pawn endgame unless you've calculated every single detail, and maybe it wasn't so easy for white to create a passed pawn in that endgame. And this will tie down the black rook. OK, the black rook's actually gone back already to defend this pawn, preempting that. The other potential weaknesses are these ones, but the black king is holding them for now. So really interesting. OK, Magnus. OK, we are actually heading towards this position. Magnus, he does have that question. Is he going to, for example, reroute his king around this way to attack this pawn on the edge of the board, which is isolated? Is he going to maybe maneuver his king around the other way and then free up his rook and kind of overload the black army? Anish, meanwhile, just has to move back and forth. Yeah, sitting on his hands. He's doing that, but 30 seconds.
Just reroute it to the F line, as David showed. Oh, I didn't expect.
Black just has to move his rook back and forth on this 7th rank. It's just going to use these squares and wait. And, OK, Magnus, he's going the other way around now. But what's next for Magnus? That's the big question. We know that Magnus doesn't believe in fortresses, but Anish Giri has tried to set up a fortress. He's hoping that white can't break through. And, OK, white is just waiting. Anish is just going to rotate with his rooks back and forth, as we mentioned.
Can potentially move, especially the D pawn, and he's just maybe at the right moment going to play this. And I like the idea you showed earlier, David, bringing a white rook to the F file, hitting.
But yeah, it's going to be hard for Anish. Every move, Magnus is going to start creating tiny little mini threats, and Anish is going to have to burn his time trying to counter them.
Yeah.
Once Magnus has started to create those threats, first Magnus is just improving his king, then he'll improve his rook, and then the threats might start to come, or the pawn breaks at least, as you guys mentioned. Yeah, look at what Anish is doing, just king up, king back, king up, king back.
It's horrible playing that, isn't it? When you know, just waiting for your own doom in some respects, especially when you're playing Magnus. It's like, oh dear, too much. You should probably be playing drafts and not chess, shouldn't you?
Oh, Simon, your move is on the board.
The breakthrough has happened. Is it the right moment? That's the big question. Giri clearly surprised by that, because it looks like white's giving up a pawn. And, OK, he's not going to take this pawn off the board. Oh, he is. That pawn was just too strong. You couldn't let it march forward. But now this is the point. The white king has entered the game. And Magnus has timed it pretty well, I think, because the black king is offside. Black's king is kind of on the wrong part of the board right now. And, oh, Giri, look at that. He clicked on his rook, clicked on his king. Under 10 seconds. He's not sure what to do.
Oh, he took a passive decision as well. Ooh.
The white rook is in now. The white rook is in the black camp.
And White can actually think about advancing the c-pawn 1 square forward. And,
I don't like that move. I thought the black king had to come back towards, but...
I think White might even offer a rook trade if he wants.
Yeah,
and just
nice.
Yeah.
win Black's pawn in the centre. Black is temporarily a pawn up, but look how many weaknesses Black has. OK, he does go for this pawn push. Magnus is rushing slightly. I'm slightly concerned about that for him, but he's created a pass pawn. White's a pawn now is a runner.
And then get the rook behind the pawn. And there you see he really made a very fast move, pre-move.
Yep, so Black's rook giving check, and Magnus, wow, rushing towards his pawn. So it's now a race. It's about whether White's pawn is quick enough to run up the board. Black's rook might have to give itself up for that, but it's just about whether the Black king can start doing its own damage. Magnus decided not to go and grab pawns himself. He's banking on this one guy, Alice the a-pawn, running up the board, and Magnus's king is now going to go and support this pawn. Every move is pretty much forced, but Magnus is just clearly playing by instinct.
Playing like this because he's not using the clock, and now you can see a pawn race.
Is he going to bring his rook back and challenge the Black rook?
Yeah, he is. That's a nice tactic.
It's going to get really complicated. But yeah, OK, there we go. This rook offers itself up, but it's purely to distract Black's rook away from defending the White a-pawn promoting.
Yeah.
5 seconds for Anish.
OK, 5 seconds, and he takes the White rook. White makes a new queen, and it's queen versus rook. Black's pawns are all a bit loose as well, so no fortress in this game. It's just about whether Black's far advanced pawn can promote later. OK, he's pushing it, but White can stop that pawn with his queen. White can give a check or two first if he wants as well. OK, that has happened there, and now just go back and stop this Black pawn in the centre. There we go, and actually a couple of pawns now under fire.
Because pawns are going to be dropping off in case if he gives a spite check, okay, king will move, but still the problem persists. You know, there's 2 pawns on prise, the pawn on the f6 square and the far advanced pawn, and now, well, all he has to do is just move his king to attack the rook, and he's done that. 12 seconds.
No more checks for Black. Black has to put his rook on a passive square. The Black pawn drops, and now it's just a matter of time. The White queen is going to overpower the Black rook. She has easy routes into the Black position. Black's pawns are just too weak. I think any moment. The Black rook also has no safe squares to park itself on. OK, it goes active, and he's taking his earphones out. He's getting ready to give up. One more move. The queen will attack the Black pawns, and that's game over.
But Anish Giri, he keeps playing.
OK, a couple of last moves here.
I suppose his only hope is to get something like queen versus rook, nothing else on the board, which is still winning for White, but it's a bit tricky to win.
Yeah, I think he's just going through the motions. It's the most painful thing, just to resign. Wait for 5 minutes and let him suffer.
Are the players allowed to go and have a walk? Maybe he could go and just chill out a little bit, go and get some sushi. Oh, his legs are there, yeah, he's about to go. That's it. Yeah.
That's it. It's over. Magnus Carlsen takes the lead in the match against Anish Giri.